Hi guy, and welcome. If you landed here, it means that you love nature, photography, wildlife, and probably you practice naturalistic photography. So if you want to share your passion, you are in the right place, trust me. And if this is the first time that you landed here, you should consider to subscribe the channel and to activate the notification bell to be always informed on new contents. We talk about photography, we talk about nature, we talk about wildlife. So, if I asked you, what is that element in photography absolutely, thoroughly necessary when we make a photograph? I mean, the only one element without which a photograph could not exist. There is one element in nature that matches this criteria. I'm almost sure most of you will say me a good equipment, false. A good location, false. A good composition, false. A good photographer, false. False and false again. Better, a good photographer should help sometime. But there is just one element, just one, without which a photograph really could not exist, could not be. Just one element. And we are going to talk about it, but in a few seconds. So, I want to explain you, I want to say you that the element that we are looking for is hidden in the same name which define our passion, photography, the word photography. As you know, I believe, you know that the word photography comes from the combination of the two Greek words graphos, which means write, paint, and photos, light. So write with light. And this is exactly what we do when we take a photograph. We write with the light. And as we have to know the grammar when we write, we have to know the grammar of the light when we take a photograph. And without this knowledge, trust me, nobody can say to be a photographer. So, you understand that the element that we are looking for is just the light. And about the light, we are going to talk in this video. Trust me, we have to well know those few fundamental concepts, because only having a deep knowledge of this fundamental concept, few fundamental concepts, we repeat, because only in this way we can put ourselves in the correct position respect to the scene that we are photographing in that moment. Or better, much better, only knowing deeply those elements, we can put our camera and our lens and ourselves in the correct position respect to the light that in that moment interact with the scene, hit the scene. Only in this way we can do a correct photograph. So, the light. Okay, let's talk about the light. Few concepts, I said, not so complicated. See, we are in a studio, we are not on the field, we are not photographing, and this should appear a theoretical lesson. Maybe it could be, maybe it is. But believe me, let's talk, let's stop and reflect for a while. It's important to understand the thing. We have to understand deeply this concept and basically reduce them to a system. And then we have this system just in our mind. This system will automatically grow up when we take a photograph. So, in the dip, there are three characteristics, three elements that we absolutely have to understand, have to know about the light, that form the light, that define the light, the temperature, the color temperature of the light, the dimension of the light, and the direction of the light. Now we are going to examine these three elements one by one. We are going to talk about the first one of these elements. The first one is the color temperature. The color temperature is an inside characteristics of the same light which depends from a series of objective conditions, such as cloud cover, shade, sun, presence of smog, fog, and so many other conditions. Maybe is the simplest element, and probably is an element that everybody of us well know, and like I said, is the simplest one to control, because we can do it with a same tool that the camera by itself, and I mean every camera practically, make available to us. In the menu of the camera, there is always a scale with a series of symbols, and every of these symbols correspond to a condition. So that we have the symbol for the light, for the interior, for the fluorescent light, for the flash, for the shadows, for the full sun, and so on. So that we can control with these scales the white balance. But to be honest, I have to say that in the largest number of conditions, practically every time, the automatic white balance, because among the symbols there is the automatic white balance. The automatic white balance works very fine in 90% of the condition of the situation. I've rarely I've been in a condition to use the Kelvin degree scale. We have the possibility to use the Kelvin degree sophistically and in the right, in a deep way, but rarely I have been in the condition to use this scale, really in very particular condition, but maybe 5, 6, 10 times, I don't know, few times anyway. So that if you are so sophisticated, you can learn to use the degree scale. Okay? The second of those parameters is the dimension of the light. Dimension of the light. It should be a bit more complicated than the other, but only apparently, because in a way or another, every one of us use it when we take a photograph, even unconsciously. But what does dimension of the light mean? Technically, it means the dimension of the source that bring the light in our scene. In other words, it means the dimension of the light source. And in this case, of course, we can have a wide spectrum of light source. We can go from a little spotlight to, I don't know, a softbox, a chandelier, to the sun, that is the largest one, but it's particular, and we are going to talk about it in a few seconds. What is the assumption then? Basically, the assumption is the bigger the light source, the more widely, the more uniformly the scene will be illuminated. At this point, my students always, every time, object me. But if you say this, and why? So why the sun, that is the largest source that we can, light source that we can find in nature, the sun is the one that brings more shadows on a scene. Okay, I say them. Okay, the sun is true that the sun is the largest light source that we can find, but it's also true that respect to our scene and respect to every scene we can find on our planet, on the Earth, sun will be far away, is really far away, and being so far away, it works exactly like a spotlight, so that we have to compare the sun to a spotlight. Different is when we are in another condition, when we cannot identify the light source. For example, when we are in situation of an overcast or hazy skies, or cloud, wide clouds, in all the, or in the morning, or in the evening, in the sunrise, and before the sunrise, after the sunset, before the sun grow up from the horizon, and after the sunset, the sun went down to the horizon. In all that case, basically, when we cannot identify the source light. In these cases, we say that we are in condition of indirect light. And this is the light that I prefer absolutely, largely, absolutely. This is the light that I prefer when I do landscape photography, but not only landscape, but only even for macro photography or wildlife photography. I can say that is the light that I prefer in any case. I have to explain you why for me the indirect light is so important. It's the better one in landscape, wildlife, macro, and every kind of photography you can do. Okay. For example, if you are in a wood, in a forest, and you are with a full light, you are not in condition of indirect light, but you have direct light, you cannot shoot any photograph. It will be a tragedy. It will be a disaster. You can do a photograph in a wood only if you have indirect light condition. For example, why? Because the light, with the indirect light, you lose the shadows. So that, in spite of the fact that you know that the contrast in a photograph is given by the relationship among the clear area and the dark area, this is the contrast. If you have not the clear area, if you have not the darkest area, but you have a presence practically every side of the middle tone, you lose the contrast. You will have a flat image, okay? But first of all, I can recover the contrast in a passage, in a couple of passages with post-production, easily, very easily. First of all, And second, and this is without price for me, if I have not to think to the light, but the balance of the light, to the exposition of the image. So in the clear area, in the dark area, different exposition, intermediate the exposition. My mind will be will be free to concentrate to what I think is really important in a photograph. Is the most important thing in a photograph when you take a photograph, and I mean the composition. In other words, put the elements on the scene in relationship among them. This is the composition. Put the element of the scene in a relationship among them, in the correct relationship among them, and in the relationship to the space of the image. This is the composition, and I want to take to the composition, not to the exposition. I can correct in post-production in any way the composition, the exposition, but I couldn't recover the composition if I didn't make it correctly on a field. That's why.